should understand about the usage of the auxiliaries do and does. The auxiliaries do and does. Where the auxiliaries do and does are used and how the auxiliaries do and does are used. When we take the pronouns, if I take the pronoun I make use of the auxiliary do. If I take you, pronoun do. We do. They do. He does. She does. It does. So the auxiliary do and does will be used in the pronouns like this. I do. You do. We do. They do. Only for the third person we are going to make use of the auxiliary does. This is for the pronouns. Let us understand how the auxiliary do and does is used with the nouns. If I take the noun cat. Now this is there in the singular. When this noun is there in the singular, it will take does. Cat does. Dogs. Dogs is there in the plural. When it is there in the plural, the auxiliary will be do. If I take child, because it's singular, the auxiliary will be does. Children, the auxiliary will be do. I hope you understood it. In the pronouns, the auxiliary do and does will be used. Does will be used when we are going to talk about the third person. Whereas in the remaining areas, we are going to make use of do. Whereas when we are going to talk about the nouns, if the noun is there in the singular, make use of does. But if the nouns are there in the plural, make use of do. Child, singular noun, so we have made use of does. Whereas children is a plural noun, so we have made use of do. Come, let us try with some more examples on how the auxiliary do and does is used. Teacher, father, uncles, cats, mother, sisters, mangoes, aunts, children. Remember, the auxiliary do and does will be always used in the present tense. The auxiliary do and does will be always used in the present tense. It is used in the negative sentences, when you are going to make questions, yes no questions, or when you need to make an emphasis on your point. The auxiliary do and does will be used in the present tense. When you are going to talk about a negative sentence, when it is asked in the form of a question, when you need the answer is yes or no, and whenever you have to make an emphasis on the statement. Let us understand how the auxiliary do and does is used in the negative sentences. When the auxiliary do and does is used in the negative sentences, the structure will be subject plus do and does plus not plus verb. And remember, whenever we are going to make use of the auxiliary do and does, the verb shall always be there in the present. That is in the base form. The verb should always be there in the base form or the present. Subject. As I told you, the subject of a sentence will either be a noun or a pronoun. If I make use of the noun table. Table, do or does? Because it is a singular unit, I make use of does. Table does not shake. Table does not shake. The word shake is there in the present. The word shake is there in the present. So whenever you are going to make use of the auxiliary do and does, you need to take the verb in the present. Father. Father is there in the singular. So make use of the auxiliary does. Father does not like ice cream. Father does not like ice cream. Father is a subject. Because it is there in the singular, I have made use of the auxiliary does with the negative word not and the verb. The verb is there in the base form like. Then you can end it with an object. Teachers. Teachers. Teachers, the noun teachers is there in the plural. When the noun is there in the plural, we make use of the auxiliary do. Teachers do not like indisciplined students. Teachers do not like indisciplined students. So I hope you understood it. Subject, do and does, not for the negative sentence, and always make use of the verb in the base form, that is in the present tense. If the subject is there in the singular, make use of the auxiliary does, and if the subject is there in the plural, make use of the auxiliary do. Now we have understood about the usage of the auxiliary do and does in the negative sentences. Let us understand how the auxiliary do and does is used in asking questions when you need the answer is yes or no. When the auxiliary do and does is used for asking questions, when you want to get the answer is yes or no, the format will be do, does plus subject plus V1. That is the base form of the verb. So here we can start with the subject. So suppose if I take the subject teacher. If I take the subject teacher. So does. Because the teacher is there in the singular form, I make use of the auxiliary does. Does teacher like to teach? Does teacher like to teach? Do they understand? Do they understand English? Do they understand English? For do and does I have made use of do because it is there in the plural. The pronoun is there in the plural. I have made use of do. And then comes a verb. As I told, the verb should always be there in the base form. So understand is there in the present tense. What is the past of understand? Understood. I have taken understand in the present tense. English. Do they understand English? So the question is asked, does teacher like to teach? The answer will be yes or no. If she likes to teach, yes. If she doesn't like to teach, no. Do they understand English? If they understand English, the answer will be yes. If they don't understand, the answer will be no. Do birds know to fly? Do birds know to fly? If the birds know to fly, yes. If the birds don't know to fly, no. So whenever you are asking the auxiliary questions for the auxiliary do and does, whenever you need to get the answer yes or no, we make use of do and does. And the format will be do does plus subject plus V1. The auxiliary do and does is also used to make and emphasize. When you want to make and emphasize on a statement, we can make use of the auxiliary do and does. For example, I know the way to her house. I know the way to her house. That means I know the way to her house. But if I want to emphasize on this statement that I know the way to her house, you can make use of I do know the way to her house. I do know the way to her house. Both the statements. Just look at the statement. I know the way to her house. It's in a suburb manner. But I don't know the way to her house. Where you want to emphasize that you know, you make use of the auxiliary do. She does know the truth. She does know the truth. She knows the truth. She knows the truth. She knows the truth. That means it's a very simple way. But she does know the truth, where you are emphasizing that she definitely knows the truth, we make use of the auxiliary does. We had learned that the auxiliary do and does is used for the present. But when we want to talk of it in the past, we make use of the auxiliary did. For the present, we have two auxiliaries, do, does. But for the past, we have only one auxiliary did. Let us understand how the structure is. Did plus subject plus V1. Did, whether it is irrespective of whether the subject is there in the singular or plural, we make use of the auxiliary did. After the auxiliary, we make use of the subject. And remember, even though it is there in the past tense, where most of us tend to make a mistake, even though the did, it shows that did is there in the past tense, don't convert the verb also to the past tense. Let the verb be there in the present, that is the base form. Let the verb be there in the present. Let us understand. Did she, I am taking the subject she, did she, the verb should be there in the present. Even though I have made use of the past auxiliary, even then I have to put my verb in the present. Did she study? Did she study well? Did she study well? So, looking at this, we can say that this sentence, this question is there in the past tense. So, from did we come to know that the question is there in the past tense. We did not focus on the verb because the verb will remain in the base form, that is in the present tense. Did teacher go to the picnic? Did teacher go to the picnic? Did teacher go to the picnic? I have taken the auxiliary in the past. Then I have taken the subject. The subject is there in the singular, and as I told you, irrespective of whether the subject is there in the singular or plural, we make use of the auxiliary did. Unlike in the present, where we made use of the auxiliary do and does. After the subject, we take the verb, and the verb should always be there in the present form. So, did teacher go to the picnic? But this question is there in the past, because this did shows that the question is there in the past. So, no need to convert the verb to the past. Did you eat well? Did you eat well? In the past, the auxiliary did is in the past. I have taken the subject you. Irrespective of whether the subject is there in the singular or plural, we make use of the auxiliary did accompanied by the verb. The verb should be there in the present. Did you eat well? I hope the explanation for do, does and did auxiliaries are clear to you?